Women over 50 are now beginning to realise that the diet industry can no longer manipulate them when it comes to losing weight. Like a client of mine on screen right now, Joy, who had been trying to lose 20 pounds for over 20 years and never quite succeeded until she started to adopt the things I'm about to share with you in this video. Okay, so I want to start off by sharing the two types of approaches that the diet industry likes people to follow in order to keep the weight loss industry going for women over 50. Indeed, women across the whole age range, to be honest with you. So the first approach they like to see is what I call the happy dabbler approach. And what is a happy dabbler approach? Well, that's the person who either says, you know, it's new year, new me, they need to do something, or they've got an event coming up like a birthday, an anniversary, or a holiday, and typically it's coming up over the next 4 to 6 weeks maybe, where they need to do something pretty immediately, pretty drastically to get a big result. And what typically happens is a very, very small percentage of people get an exceptional result following that particular diet. Whether it, for example, it could be keto, it could be Atkins, it could be any number of these diets. And by the way, all of these diets that are out there have one thing in common: they have calorie restriction in order for them to work. So people jump on the diet and 9 times out of 10 they don't get the result, apart from a very, very small percentage. And for those that do get a result, I would say a high percentage of those end up putting the weight back on, and indeed end up putting on significantly more weight than they had in the first place. So that's what I call the happy dabbler. And I would suggest that they probably prop up the weight loss industry by about 80% or more. They keep it going. They're the ones that jump on all these new diets and talk about them in, you know, meetings, gatherings, over coffee, whatever. These are the people that will talk about the latest diets and try and get you sucked into it. So that's a happy dabbler. The second approach they like to see is what I call the intellectual dabbler. Now, the intellectual dabbler, they gravitate towards diets that have got some good research, evidence-based, maybe doctors are promoting it, maybe books have been written on it, but it's really well researched, and they like that kind of diet. And the intellectual dabbler will also invest in exercise typically. They may do a bit of mindset work as well. So on the face of it, an intellectual dabbler is someone that's going to be successful. But here's the thing with intellectual dabblers: when one thing doesn't quite work out the way it should work out, that can be enough to derail the intellectual dabbler. That can be enough to get the intellectual dabbler to start to question whether or not what they're doing will actually work long term. When really what's happening is there's a deep-seated belief within them somewhere that actually they can't succeed when it comes to weight loss. So they use this minor, whatever it happens to be, that distracts them or derails them or doesn't quite work out the way they thought it would work out, to say, oh yeah, this doesn't quite work. But they won't sort of throw their hands up and say it doesn't work. They'll be more clever about it, and they will somehow justify it, and before you know it, they're back to doing what they did before and they've given up. And I kind of feel for these people a little bit more than the happy dabblers, because the happy dabblers, whilst they could be in a bit of pain themselves because they're carrying that weight around still, the intellectual dabblers genuinely want to get a result, and they really have done some research before making a start. So for them, it really is a big kick in the teeth when they find themselves all the way back to square one. And I would say a good percentage of the clients that I work with are more the intellectual dabbler than they are the happy dabbler. So those are the two types of approaches the diet industry likes to see: the intellectual dabbler and the happy dabbler. They're the ones that keep the whole diet industry going. So what is the third approach? Well, before I share the third approach with you, something that I think is going to help you out a lot is, in terms of this information, is my free weight loss assessment. It's called the Boost Weight Loss Assessment. There's a link below this video. Click on that, answer a few basic questions, and you'll get back a personalized report which will give you a kickstart for your mindset, your diet, and your exercise. Okay, so what's the third approach that I taught? I taught that me and Joy discussed to help her shift the 20 pounds that she'd been struggling with for over 20 years to get rid of. Well, the approach is the realist approach. Getting real with yourself, recognizing that actually there isn't one magic diet out there, there isn't one magic food out there, there isn't one magic exercise out there that's going to miraculously transform your body overnight, nor are you going to be perfect all the time. And once you get that in your head, you're not sort of being defeatist. You're just saying, okay, I live in the real world. There are real temptations out there. Things are going to happen that I haven't planned for. They're going to potentially derail me from time to time. But as long as I remain in this sort of realistic mindset, I can overcome whatever gets thrown in my direction. And that's the approach that people take when they become not only successful at losing weight, but successful in keeping that weight off long term. And that's precisely the approach that me and Joy took, and I coached her through this realistic approach, and she got a phenomenal result. You know, she lost her 20 pounds in, it took her about, I'm wanting to say about just over 12 weeks to lose it, and then we worked together for a further 12 weeks just to maintain and really embed some good habits. Now, if you're interested in finding out how to put together a comprehensive weight loss plan that involves mindset, diet and exercise, click on the video on screen now, and that will give you that comprehensive overview of how you can go about achieving your weight loss goals as a woman over 50.